Chapter 10, Kiana Rabini. Bad news from Utah. The equipment trailer got struck by lightning, so production on my mom's movie has to be shut down for a couple of weeks. Can't I come back home while you guys are waiting to start up again? I asked Mom over Skype. That wouldn't work, she tells me. What about school? How can we pull you out of Greenwich when you just got started? And then re-enroll you once the shooting resumes here? That would be too disruptive. I have to hold myself back from screaming. There is nothing to disrupt. I don't really go here. Geez Louise never registered me. I'm not even in a real class. Forget it. Mom would be on the phone to Dad in seconds flat, never a pleasant convo. I'd be back in that office fast enough to make my head spin, registering for 8 classes instead of just 1, 8 new teachers to get used to, who give real assignments and real homework. No, my life here isn't perfect, but it's designed for maximum bearableness. Why get complicated? I'm a short-timer, just not quite as short as I thought. 2 extra weeks in Greenwich, of Dad and Step-Monster, of Chauncey's sniffles and fevers and rashes and barfs. 2 more weeks in the Parmesan house. 2 more weeks of the unteachables. Fine, I can handle it. I can do 2 more weeks standing on my head. Speaking of school, Mom goes on, how are you fitting in? I went there, you know, back when it was old Greenwich High. Great, I tell her. I've already gotten picked for this special program. Mom beams. Special? I knew she wouldn't be able to resist the idea of me being exceptional. I plow forward. It's called SCS 8. Really hard to get into. I should know, I'm not even really in it. The teacher is fantastic. He's super hands-off because he wants us to learn to work independently. Mr. Kermit believes... Kermit? She interrupts. You mean from the cheating scandal? Cheating scandal? Mom's brow furrows. It was an awfully long time ago, the early 90s. I remember I was away at college when it happened, but it must be the same person. Kermit isn't a very common name. I'm intrigued. What did Mr. Kermit do? I don't remember the details, but the whole town was up in arms about it. I'm surprised he's still teaching. It was a horrible black mark against him. Wow, Mr. Kermit has a past. The plot thickens. Mom adds, do you want me to call the school and get to the bottom of it? No, I blurt. I mean, Mr. Kermit's an awesome teacher now, and that's the main thing, right? Who cares what happens in the 90s? But Kiana, it was a cheating scandal. I don't want you mixed up in something like that. Relax, Mom. I guarantee that there isn't any cheating going on in SCS 8. I can say that with total confidence because there isn't anything going on, period. Why would we bother to cheat when Mr. Kermit never even looks at the few papers he gets? Eventually, she agrees to let the subject drop. I end the Skype call, my mind racing. Suddenly, I've cracked a mystery that's been nagging at me for the very first moment. I followed Parker's schedule into room 117. Why would Mr. Kermit want to teach a class like the Unteachables? Answer, he doesn't. He gets a bad class every year because of what happened way back in the 90s. Seems a little crazy that he's still paying for a mistake from that long ago. But if Mom remembers, other people do too. Turns out SCS 8 isn't just a dumping ground for the rejects of the school. The reject teachers wind up there too. So Mr. Kermit is famous. If Mom still remembers what he did way back then, that counts as fame. Okay, it was a bad thing, but so what? On reality TV shows, the biggest stars are always the jerks. Besides, cheating scandal or not, I can't forget how he spoke up for our class to Miss Vargas, and how he fought for Barnstorm's right to stay with the football team. He may not be much of a teacher, but I'm more convinced than ever that he's one of the good guys. I'm almost anxious to get to school the next day, and it isn't just because Chauncey is barking the house down with whooping cough. When I get to room 117, though, Mr. Kermit is absent. We have a substitute, Mrs. Landsman. Mr. Kermit's not exactly a young guy, but Mrs. Lanceman is really old. Raheem does a quick sketch of her rising from the grave as part of a zombie apocalypse. The kid is really talented. The picture makes the rounds of the class by paper airplane. Dawn of the Dead, hisses Mateo when the portrait lands on his desk. No talking, Miss Lanceman orders. Too late. A nickname is born. She's Dawn of the Dead. Dawn for short. She's grouchy, but we should be used to that by now, our regular teacher being a gold medalist at the Grouch Olympics. It feels different, though. Dawn crabs at us while Mr. Kermit just crabs because crabbing is his natural state. So when some of it lands on us, we don't take it personally. We just happen to be in the same room. Dawn is yammering on about the Battle of Gettysburg when I hear a power hum, low but growing in volume. At first I'm afraid the school is about to blow up. Then I realize the sound is coming from the desk next to me, Aldo. His face is almost as red as his hair as he devotes all his breath to maintaining the sound. Now the hum is coming from behind me at a slightly different pitch. I risk a glance over my shoulder. Barnstorm's doing it too, a look of unholy glee on his face. Next, the noise drops at least one octave, Elaine buzzing like a bassoon. Well, we Californians know how to prank a sub as well as anybody, so I jump right in. Pretty soon, SCS-8 is vibrating. Alarmed, Dawn of the Dead puts in a call to the custodian. As soon as Mr. Carstairs comes in, we stop humming. It was happening just a second ago, the substitute teacher insisted. It sounded like a problem with the wiring. The custodian rakes us with a rueful look. It's the kids, ma'am. They're messing with you. They do it to all the subs. Dawn doesn't like that. For a minute there, I'm afraid we're going to have a real zombie apocalypse on our hands. But in the end, what can she do besides yell? She does a whole lot of that. It's pretty jarring when you're used to Mr. Kermit, who barely speaks at all. We fight back. We do the old drop a textbook trick at least 20 times. Barnstorm drums with his crutches on the floor. Elaine pretends to be asleep, which is odd because Raheem stays awake and alert. Mateo speaks to the substitute in Dothraki and does all his written work in Elven runes. That's right, I said work. Dawn of the Dead is trying to run this like an actual class. Who does she think she is? Take out your math book, she announces. What math book? Barnstorm returned. Surely there are math books. Her frustration is growing. How do you study math? We do worksheets, Mateo supplies. What worksheets? I don't see any worksheets. There should be lesson plans. Of course there should be if we had a normal teacher. But Dawn of the Dead doesn't know Mr. Kermit. Maybe she thinks we